If you're new to Exchange, I want to give you a visual image about messaging system basics. And all messaging systems basically fall into two categories. The first one is a shared file system, and the second one is a client-server system. Now, it's amazing there are still both of these types out there, and you just need to understand the advantages and disadvantages of both, and then we'll talk about which one Exchange falls into. In a shared file message system environment, notice that we have our email files. This would be a mailbox, this would be a mailbox, and this would be a mailbox. And this is the client now. And if there is, it comes back to them and they read it. Where does the shared file name come from? Because each of these mailboxes have to basically be shared out to everybody. Now, in a lot of these, when you authenticate to the system, you're authenticating to the system, but you more or less have write access to everybody's mailbox. You can't necessarily read their mail, but you have to have at least write access to everybody's mailbox. And so let's take a look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of this. First of all, the most obvious advantage is you don't have to have a very powerful server. All it's going to do is save files and then serve those files. Most of the processing power here is out on the client itself. The client's performing all the processing. A lot easier maintenance. There's not a whole lot of server configuration required. Share the files, make them available, and you've pretty much got it. Now, what are the disadvantages in this environment? First of all, there's limited security. You may have to have read and write permissions for everyone to everyone else so that you can have all the functionalities you want in this kind of email environment. And again, it's amazing the naivety that was out there early on in the computing world about the fact that we could just trust people to only read the files they were supposed to. And of course, it didn't last long. There's also increased network traffic because the client has to continually check for messages. And in a large organization, I used to work for a large telecommunications company here in the South, and a lot of our network traffic was the fact that 30 or 40,000 employees have to a number of times every day connect across the network to the email server to just check to see if they have messages. If they didn't have messages, we basically wasted that network traffic. There's also a high client processing load. Since all the processing takes place out there on that client, that translates out into higher cost because every client computer, we have to make sure that they keep up with the power, RAM, and so forth that they need to continue to do all their work. So this is going to generally require more functionality and more power on that client. So that's the shared file system. Now, in the next video, we're going to look at the client server system, and you'll see some obvious advantages there.